Welcome guys to the class of microeconomics theory, and in this playlist we were talking about the consumer theory, which is one of the basic, fundamental and core concept within the microeconomics theory. It's very important. If you want to know microeconomics theory, it's very crucial, critical and key to understand the concepts of consumer theory. That's why in most of the cases, the first topic that we cover in microeconomics theory is the consumer theory. Because for understanding the next or other parts of microeconomics, first we need to know the consumer theory or the logic behind this theory. That's why we are also going to talk about consumer theory first before talking about the other parts of microeconomics theory. So let's start our discussion on consumer theory without wasting our time. Okay, first of all, before talking about the consumer theory, let me define you microeconomics theory. Because in order to understand why we are talking consumer theory within the concepts of microeconomics theory, we have to first define microeconomics theory itself. So, microeconomics theory is the analysis of the behavior of individual economic agent and the aggregation of their action in an institutional framework. So there are four key concepts or key terms in this definition of microeconomics: analysis, behavior, individual economic agent, and institutional framework. Within the concepts of microeconomics theory, who are individual agents? We are mostly focusing on two agents within the concepts of microeconomics theory, which are consumers who consume the goods and services or the output or product that have been produced by the firms or producer. And also we are concerning firms and producer as another economic agent within the concepts of microeconomics theory. And mostly in the case of microeconomics theory, consumers and producers are the key players. So how they behave in the market? What are their behavior? Consumers want to maximize their utility. So the behavior of consumers are utility maximizations. And what the producer do, they try to maximize their profit. So the behavior of producer are maximizing profit. And the institutional framework in microeconomics theory traditionally is the price mechanism in an impersonal marketplace or in a game theoretic setting. And what is the mode of analysis in microeconomics? We are considering about an equilibrium point. So the mode of analysis in the concepts of microeconomics theory is equilibrium analysis. So this is the definition of microeconomics. So in order to know the microeconomics itself, we have to know these four key terms within this definition. We have to have this ability to define, to explain, to describe these key terms. So now, let's go to talk about what do we intend to get out of this course, to get out of this microeconomics theory. In a positive sense, we are going to have a better understanding of individuals' agent behavior in certain situations. In different situations, how consumers behave to maximize their utility, and how producers behave to maximize their profit. We just try to understand the situation. In different situations, how they behave, how they change their behavior, how they change their action, how they change their strategies. And in a normative sense, we are getting the ability to intervene or not, to analyze this situation. Either we are going to intervene or not, both at the government level and also at the institutional level. We should have this ability to find out this logic, to intervene or not. In the bigger level, which is governmental level, and in the smaller level, which is institutional or individual institutional level. And the model we analyze are highly simplified in microeconomics, although they have some general predictive power. However, they are like so simple, but we can generalize that one for the bigger concept, for the much more complex, for the much more like complicated situation. However, although these models are so simple, this model represents the building block of more complex and realistic testable models that we have in microeconomics. So now, let's move to the first topic in microeconomics theory, which is the consumer theory. So in this video, we are more specifically talking about some basic concepts within the consumer theory, and more complex and complicated topics about consumer theory will be covered in the next videos. So now, let's go to some content that we are covering in microeconomics, especially in this series. And we honestly, we have some more topics that we are going to cover in next videos. So first of all, we are talking about some primitive notions, the overall structure that we have in microeconomics, the consumption sets and properties of consumption sets. And then we are moving to the preference relation, which is the foundation of consumer theory. By using preference relation, we can define the consumer preferences, the consumer happiness, the consumer desire, the consumer satisfactions, and the consumer fulfillment. And then, after talking about preference relation, we are going to talk about the axiom of choice, which are completeness, transitivity, reflexivity, and continuity, locally non-associations, monotonicity, and convexity. And then we move to talk about utility function. What is utility function and how the representation theorem work for the utility function. These are the four basic concepts or the four basic topics that we are covering in consumer theory in this part. Then we will move on to the next level of consumer theory in next videos. So now, let's talk about some primitive notions that we have in microeconomics. So, let me first tell you a quote from the Robert Greene. He says that the future belongs to those who learn more skills and use them in creative ways. So now, let's think about that. How we can learn the skills of analyzing microeconomic situation, and how we can use these skills that we learn from microeconomics in a creative way for our daily life, at least for our own daily life as an individual, as one of the key players, as one of the key core foundation of microeconomics, which is individual or consumer, as we are one of them. So now, let's talk about some basic concepts or some basic terms. Who are the agent in consumer theory? In consumer theory, the agents are individuals or consumers, and sometimes we refer to household as individuals or as an agent in microeconomics. But a kind of activity these individuals or these households do, consumers consume a whole set of commodities like goods and services. And we focus here on L number of commodities. That L start for a small L start from 1 to the capital L. That means that L number of commodities we have here. So L is notation for the number of commodities, for the number of goods and services. And the framework that we have in the consumer theory is the consumption set X. So from a set of X, we consume some bundles of goods and services. What is consumption set? Consumption set is a set of all alternatives or consumption bundles or consumption plans that the consumer can conceive whether some of them will be achievable in practice or not. And this consumption set X is the subset of RL, is the subset of real numbers with L dimension. This consumption set is the subset of real number with L dimensions. And the small letter x, which is N capital X, is the consumption bundle, which is one of the elements in this consumption set, which specifies the amount of the different commodities as one element of this consumption set. And this consumption set can be a vector because it's a combination of different commodities. So maybe in this bundle, we have different goods from 1 to L, x1, x2, up to xl. And x is a vector because it's combination of different goods. L dimension can be L number of goods here. Then x is a vector containing different quantities of each of the L commodities here. So that's why we think as a bold x, which shows the vector notation. And also here, the consumption bundle, which we call them as a x bold, which is as a vector, is the element of capital X, which is the consumption set. And when X is a subset of RL, so it means X is in RL, then when X small as a consumption bundle is in X and capital X is a subset of RL, then this consumption vector or consumption bundle is also include or is a member of RL. But we think about here as a member of real number with L dimension but non-negative. Non-negative. We are simplifying things here. Usually we will simplify things and just think of the consumption set as an entire non-negative orthont. Why is that? Because we think about that, a person cannot consume negative amount of something. A person can either consume a positive amount or zero. It doesn't make sense that you say I'm consuming -3 or -3 of that goods. So that's why this consumption set we think about as a RL plus, as a set of real number with L dimension but non-negative. In a set description, we say that X, which is the consumption set, is a set of consumption bundle NRL such that each XL or each commodity bundles is greater than and equal to 0 for all L from 1 to capital L, and this is equal to RL plus. It means the consumption set is the entire set of real numbers with L dimension but non-negative. So it means we can consume any amount from 0 to L. But this is non-negative. It means we cannot consume negative amount of goods. So now, let's move on to the properties of consumption sets. Here are 4 basic properties that a consumption set should hold, should have. First of all, the consumption set is a non-negative set. Is the properties of non-negativity. It means the consumption set is a subset of L dimension real numbers, but non-negative. So another way we can say that XOR consumption set is a subset of positive real numbers with L dimension because we have L number of commodities. And the second thing, X is closed set. It includes its boundary. It includes its boundary. In order to have a solution for that, to later on maximize the utility, this consumption set should be closed to have a solution. And the third one, consumption set is a convex. If you don't know what's convex set, just please refer to some basic mathematical review, and you will find out what is a convex set. And also the last thing is zero inclusion consumption set. We use zero as a bold here because zero can be a vector. So it means we consume zero amount of all L number of commodities that we have in consumption set. So that's why zero can be included in consumption set because we can consume zero amount of a good. But why negative does not include here? Because we cannot consume negative amount of some goods. So now, let's talk about feasible consumption set. Because we are just talking about consumption set because some of them like not in practice achievable. But when we are talking about feasible set, a feasible set represents all those alternatives or bundle that are both conceivable and realistically obtainable given the consumer circumstances, which is like budget constraint or physical constraint or sometimes environmental constraint. And we focus on alternatives that are achievable given the economic realities of consumers. We represent feasible consumption set as a B, which this feasible consumption set is a subset of the bigger consumption set X. Because out of that consumption set, B is those bundles that are realistically achievable and also conceivable. So consumption set itself has one characteristic which is conceivable but maybe realistically not achievable, not in practice, but feasible set has both conditions, both conceivable and realistically achievable or obtainable. So that's why the feasible set is a subset of this consumption set.